All right, it's October 3rd, 2019, and we are here at Frosty Acres Campground. This is the lower pond, the first pond that you come into as you enter the campground. And we are today going to do some bass and sunfish fishing on the fly. So we got these two rods here, and then I've got my gear here. So if you're looking to give this a try, and I recommend that you do, this fly fishing is it's a lot of fun, a lot different than the spin fishing. We were spin fishing and hitting a couple spots and fishing for bass, and I'll try to make the story super quick, but there was 4 or 5 bass, and I had this fly rod just like this one here, except it was a 5-weight. And I was using a dry fly and landing it on the water, and I was picking the bass out one by one, and I caught 3 or 4. And then Edie had a spinning rod at that time. She threw a spinner bait in there. As soon as the spinner hit the water, poof, it scared all the fish away. And that's because you're using the lure as the weight to cast with the line. And with the fly rod, you're using the weight of the line to make the cast. The lures can be really small. So today, we are using this guy right here, okay, which is just a little popper. Just this little tiny popper here, okay? And it floats on the water, and you give it a couple little strip motions like this with the line, and they come up and grab it. It's a ton of fun. Now this setup here, this is what I would recommend if you're looking to get into this and you don't really know a lot about fly fishing. This is an LL Bean Quest rod right here, okay? And I recommend it because for 150 bucks you get the rod, you get the reel, you get the backer line, you get the line, and it's like literally ready to fish, okay? And it also comes with a case, and what I like about the case is that the case for the rod has a space for the reel, so you don't have to take the reel off every time you put it in the case. I don't have it with me, it's back at the garage right now. So LL Bean Quest setup right here. If you're looking to get into this, that's what I would recommend. So that setup is going to take you down to the end of your fly line. So that's there. So at the end of the fly line, you're going to need to put a leader. So I'm using this leader here. This is a 9-foot, 15-pound, because we're pond fishing. Now in this case, I'm using a little bit heavier of a setup because sometimes I like to throw larger flies, number one. And number two, sometimes these fish, you have a lot of obstructions, logs, weeds, all kinds of things. So it's not necessarily the weight of the fish that's driving this setup. It's the stress you put on the line when they run under a log or into a patch of weeds, or the size lure that I'm trying to throw. Like, you know, this is what's on the line right now, this little tiny popper, but I can throw this on there if we get into some bigger fish. Now this lower pond, these are smaller fish, so I'm going to stick with this smaller popper right here, but I've got like a larger popper. You can go to something like this. These are going to float on the surface, okay? And then the next step is to go to something like this, which is a good mid-water. It's going to sink about halfway, and you can strip it in. And then you've got like a woolly booger like this that has a little more material to it. We had a clouser minnow over here. This is a crystal flash clouser. These are heavier ones that you're going to drag along the bottom. So start top, then go mid, and then hit the bottom. So you got our full setup here. Comes with everything down to the end of the fly line. We add a leader, and then the last thing we're going to add is some tippet. And that goes on the end of the leader. And there's a program called 3D Knots, an app that will show you how to tie these ties. And you know, I don't think I have my pond leader in here. I was in here. So anyways, I'll find it. Oh, it's in the back of the car. It's right here. Okay, so this is the tippet that I'm using. It's actually 9.8, so basically 10-pound tippet. So we've got, I'm just gonna pop this off of here. What do we got? We've got our fly line, which terminates here, and a loop-to-loop connection with our leader. And then right here, it's kind of hard to see. Oh, there we go. Right here at the end of this 9-foot leader, I have a double uni knot tied. And you can use that 3D knots program to show you how to tie this double uni knot. It's really simple. You make a loop, go around 6 times, that ties one line to the other, be like a knot up here, and then you take the other line, wrap it around the other one, go through the loop 6 times, and you'll have a knot down here, and then you slide the two together and you clip off the ends. Now, what do you need to get started pond fishing with a fly rod? Well, you can buy that. Now, this over here, this is a Frankenstein rig. I built this myself. That's a Mystic 8-weight, and then it's got a Echo reel on it, which is a Echo Base 6/8 reel, and then I put the backer line on there. I'm not sure what it is, and then I put the main line on there. The main line did not have a loop in it, so I just tied one on the end. And so this is like a Frankenstein rig that I'm fishing with here. This is all different parts that are put together. But if you're not at the point where you're really comfortable putting that together, you can just go buy something like this that's to get started. And that's exactly what I did. Got started with this guy here and then migrated to something that I built myself. So that's our setup. If you're just getting started and you want to just do some pond fishing, you can just buy a handful of these. I think I got 6 of them for like $8. You got the full setup here, and then throw a leader on the end of your fly line. Double uni knot it to about a 4-foot section. This would be your tippet. And then tie on your fly. Now, I mean, really, you could probably, in a scenario like we're in today, probably just tie the fly on the end of this tippet and you'd still be okay. Or the end of this leader and you would still be okay. But we got the tippet on there. Let's get out there and see if we can't catch some fish. We're going to fish this lower pond for a little while. It's nice to have these glasses so you can see through the water. We're going to fish this lower pond for a little while, and then we're going to move up to the upper pond. Usually we can catch some larger fish up there, so we'll see how it goes. Alright, so unfortunately I forgot my mount where I could mount my camera on me and you guys could actually watch from my perspective what I'm doing. So I'm going to have someone else shoot this and I'm just going to show you what I'm doing here. So again, we're fishing this really small popper. This is a number 8 hook. This is a number 8 fly rod. Now earlier I switched to a larger popper. I couldn't get the casting distance out of it because this line just would not carry it. So, and again, I know I mentioned earlier, usually line weight, this whole setup is geared around the fish. But when it comes to bass, you're fishing some kind of large flies, and you want a setup geared around what you're throwing. This is an 8-weight, which is just a little bit heavier than it needs to be, but I can really throw this fly out there 60, 70 feet without a problem. Now today we're using this technique and we're catching bass and we're catching sunfish and bluegills on the fly. But tomorrow I could be using this same technique with a 12 weight to catch striped bass. So it's one of the reasons that, you know, I would encourage people to go and do this at a pond to get good at it, because when you go and you fish for striped bass, you're using the same exact techniques. And I've definitely gotten better at it by trying this first in a pond. The other thing, this tie right here that I have on this fly is a Rapala knot. And the reason why I use that is because it creates a little loop at the end. So opposed to like a clinch knot or a trilene knot where your knot is tight to your hook ring, there's actually a little loop there at the end, and that's going to allow this fly to articulate and move a little bit more naturally instead of just being hard clinched straight to the line, creating a dead motion like a leaf or something on the water. It's a little more alive. Now so far I've caught about 12 fish in 2 hours, so this has been working pretty good. But let's take a walk over here and I'll show you exactly what I'm doing. Basically, to get the line out, I'm going to false cast probably 5 or 6 times to get as much line out as I want to have out. And then I'm going to give it one last cast to get the popper out. And then I'm just going to kind of strike the line 6 or 8 inches at a time to cause this popper to pop. So let's come on up here. Fish on. And this is why I'm using an 8 weight, okay? I really only need about a 4 or a 5 weight for these fish, maybe even a 3. But he just ran right up into these lily pads. I just couldn't keep him at the top fast enough. And if I had a 3 or a 4 or even a 5 weight with 5X tippet, he'd be broken off right now. Yeah, we lost him. again, that's a perfect example of why I'm using this heavy of a setup, a number 8. It's definitely not the fish, but with the obstacles, if I had horsed that fish a little more, I probably could have kept him out of those lily pads. As you can see here, a nice little bluegill on the popper. So today we're using this little number 8 popper on this number 8 fly rod here in the pond, and we're catching bluegills. I believe this is number 12, or 12, 13, or 14, with some bass mixed in. But that's all there is to it. I mean, you cast out, give it little strokes to pop that popper. And like I said, today it's sunfish and bass on this little pond. But if I was to take these same techniques, make this a 12 weight, make this say a 2-aught popper, we could be doing striped bass. and that's where the fun really is. But to get out here and do this first is definitely a great way to learn. We'll see you later. All right, so there you have it. Bass and sunfish, bluegills on the fly. This is kind of a smaller pond. I know the weather's not so great today. I've certainly seen a lot more action on other days. You know what's fun about these fish is they're a lot easier than per se trout. They don't scare as easily, and most of us have ponds like this right near our houses. Certainly a lot easier to find yourself a pond like this to fish bass in, opposed to say trout or salmon, when you really need to be in the right place at the right time using the right techniques. So there it is. Today we used 95% this fly right here, this small little popper fly. I did switch up and use this larger one right here for a little while, but I'll tell you, I had trouble throwing. I don't want to say I had trouble, but I could not throw this one anywhere near as far as I could throw that one. So the smaller flies are better. Now this is an 8-weight setup, so I think what I'm also going to do is I'm going to try bringing my 12-weight with me so I can throw some larger flies. And I'm also going to try pulling some of these deer hair mouse through the lily pads, because I'm pretty sure if I get a larger bass on there, you know, it's going to break off this 8-pound test. So there it is, bass on the fly, bass and bluegill on the fly. We caught about 14 to 20 fish. I know Edie caught a whole bunch too, so post pictures of those. Got any questions, just post it in the comments.